Hello there, welcome to season 2025 on Six Tackles with Gus. It is wonderful to be back talking footy, and what a season we have ahead. You can catch all the action on 9 right throughout the year, and we'll dissect all the issues and talk a bit of nonsense every week on this podcast with the man himself, Phil Gould. Welcome to another year of rugby league.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
Geez, you brought some prep today, my goodness.
Not really.
There's 1,000 pieces of paper. So what we are going to do, as we do every year, we'll do a season preview, but we're going to do it in 2 parts. Otherwise, we'd be here for 7 hours. And we'll throw some other stuff in as well. But we are recording 2 episodes today because someone is going to Vegas.
Yes, Vegas, baby.
How did they talk you into that?
Well, I'd sort of floated the idea last year. I guess at some stage the Bulldogs are considering going to Las Vegas, and given the experience that the teams had last year, what I was most worried about was the 4 teams that went to Vegas last year. Halfway through the year, they were all underperforming. In fact, I think they were all outside the 8 halfway through the year, and 2 of them, South Sydney and the Broncos, ended up losing their coach. Now, I'm not saying Vegas caused it, but I'm just wondering whether or not the preparation for Vegas, the recovery from Vegas, and all that travel earlier in the year had some sort of factor on how the teams performed, particularly early in the season. So if we go, A, we want to go and we want to do well, and B, we want to do it right and make sure that it doesn't affect the rest of the season. I'm not saying that it did for those teams, but it was interesting that all 4 sides were probably a little bit down on form early in the season.
So it's a recce. So for memory, and I'm sure it's the same this year, all the clubs went and set up camp for over a week, didn't they? It wasn't a hit and run.
Yeah, it was varied, and I've sort of got all their itineraries. They've been very helpful, the 4 clubs. They've got all their itineraries on what they've done. And the 4 clubs that are going this year, I mean, the Panthers, the Warriors, the Raiders, and the Sharks, I know all the people at those clubs, and, they've been very helpful as well. But I just wanted to go over and have a look at it for myself. And I decided I would go. And then when the 4 teams were over, I thought, well, I know them. I can find out exactly what they've done and where they wanted to go. But then by then our chairman and CEO, they wanted to go over and look at some commercial stuff as well. They're also going on a fact-finding mission with a couple of sporting franchises in the US. So they asked that I come over. So I'll break the trip up. I'll spend a few days in Hawaii on the way over and then come straight back. But I'll be back for round 1.
Oh, good. Very good. I look forward to your key learnings. So we're going to do our 2 season previews today. So when you listen next week, you'll wonder why we haven't spoken about anything current, because Gus will be on a plane. While I'm at it, you'll be in Vegas, so naturally there'll be the lure of the punt.
Nah, I'm not a casino person.
Well, I've looked up the five key strategies of blackjack.
Have you? Yeah, wasting your time on me.
Stan,
I find it boring. I can't sit there.
I
that
thought
long.
you'd be a blackjack.
No,
guru.
I can't sit there and play cards. I can't.
Really?
No.
Well, if you do, they say you should stand when your hand, if you've got 12 or 16 and the dealer's got 2 or 6.
Yeah.
Because then the dealer's got to pull 3 cards.
Yeah. You know what Vegas says, don't you?
What?
If you've got a system, visit us.
Do they?
Because that system beats you.
Always split aces and 8s.
Yeah, okay.
Not interested.
I'm not interested.
Oh, come on. Did you play poker?
No.
Do you know the rules?
I played a little bit of poker online. Yeah.
See,
I used to like to watch the poker, but it got silly after a while.
Or with all the funny sunglasses and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a game I don't get. Like the patience you'd need to have. I'll just be all in first 3
Well,
hands.
it's a mind game more than the cards.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to play the person more than the cards. It's a real strategy game. Yeah, no, I'm not a
I
great
thought
casino.
you'd be right into the card games.
No. I don't know what it is. I don't have the time for it. I don't have the concentration for it.
Oh, we'll see. We'll see if he come back with a pocket full of cash. Maybe you can take Paul Gallen's cash. He likes to have a good time in Vegas.
I think he's got his locked away.
Is he?
Yeah.
he really let down last year.
It'd be hard to get to his cash.
All right, so we did the All-Stars on. We'll talk about the All-Stars. But so you'll have to chaperone a few of the team, actually, because JT's going, Gal, Freddie will be all right.
I've lost Freddie on 4 continents. I'm not chaperoning Freddie anymore. I've had my Freddie.
Freddie's a sensible one now.
I've had my Freddie chaperoning. No, he's pretty good now.
He's good.
He's a responsible parent.
Yes.
No, he's done very well. No, I'm looking forward to it. I heard about their exploits last year on tour. I won't be on tour.
No.
So I'm just over there doing a little bit of work, and I'll actually, now that I'm going, I'll probably do a little bit of work for 9 while I'm there as well. So.
Excellent. We should have done a podcast while you're over there. Did you watch the Super Bowl?
No.
I didn't watch it either.
No, I didn't. It was a flogging.
Yeah, they give it to
didn't
them.
Yeah.
How was your summer?
Good, busy. I'm busy. Really haven't had much of a break. I had a week at the Gold Coast just around New Year's. Went up and visited my good friend Wayne Beavis and had New Year's with him. But other than that, pretty much been working. Bulldogs getting ready for this season. So this time last year, I went and did a week in Hawaii just before the season started. It was my first chance to get away. So I'm going to take the chance on the way to Vegas to do it again. So I'll just have a little let down in Hawaii for the next week and then over to Vegas. And then back, and she's all systems go.
Well, it's good you're taking your wife. You won't see her for the next 9 months, so at least you're getting that out of the way early.
Just got to keep the credit cards away from her. She's a spender.
Yes! No. Dear.
With Jerome Luai gone, the Panthers' reign is over.
No.
No, not by any stretch. Not by any stretch. They've lost a good player every year, and Jerome is obviously a significant one this year, and James Fisher-Harris. But when you look at their team, they've still got half a dozen of the best players in the world in those particular positions right now. I think any team would love to have, the senior player group that they've got at the moment. So, and then, the other players that are just so good around them. But, Moses Leota and Liam Martin and Asai Yeo and Nathan Cleary and Dylan Edwards and Brian Todd. They're probably the best players in their position anywhere in the competition at the moment. And you've got all those other players there that have been playing with them for a few years, Isaac Tungle and Sorensen and Mitch Kenny and those sort of players, and the young fellas coming through like Lindsay Smith played for Australia last year after their grand final success, and
Liam
Henry. They got a good crop of young fellas going through, and of course they've bought Isaiah Papali'i and Blaze. What's his name?
Blaze Talangi.
Panthers are going to be hard to beat for a long time, mate.
Do you know what I find fascinating? Just thinking back, reflecting on their grand final win last year. I find it really hard to sort of imagine how you can be up at that elite level for 4 years in a row and the flame still burns.
Well, I think it's the age. I think it's where they are in their career, because they all got to first grade young. In their mid-20s, they're actually senior experienced players, where in recent times we've had teams win competitions with much older teams, much more experienced teams. It's one of the factors we'll look at today, the amount of NRL games in your playing roster, because it is a significant factor at different stages of the season. Experience counts, but all these young players had such experience and played together for so long that they were virtually, senior, hardened, experienced players in their mid to early 20s. So it's been a significant reign, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. I remember back when they won their first premiership, people asked me, could they win 2? I said, they'll win 5 or 6. Well, they've won, 4? They've been in 5 grand finals. And I think still boast, as a player group, the top 6 players in those sort of positions. So they're going to be very hard to beat. Well, have you got Nathan Cleary in your side, and Asai Yeo, and Dylan Edwards, and Brian Todd, and Moses Leota and Liam Martin. Lindsay Smith's now playing for Australia, and then they're able to recruit her in and around that, and they've also got some kids, the McLean brothers coming through, and some other kids that are emerging. They're going to be hard to beat.
The All-Stars match is a lock on the schedule.
No.
Yeah, the word schedule gets me a little bit, because I think it's going to be harder and harder to maintain if we keep playing representative football long after the previous season is done, and then having the All-Stars as the first game early on. There may be another place for it. I think the scheduling is going to be an issue, and I think it's an issue our game is looking at going into the future. We can't keep playing rep football, till late November and then turning around and trying to start again in February with anything that we're doing. We've got to give players better time than that, and of course with don't start me on all that stuff, but the holiday breaks that they've got to have and everything they do, you just can't get them ready for the season. So
you think the game's a lock, but not necessarily where it is?
The concept's a lock.
Yes.
The concept's a lock. The schedule's not a lock. I don't know that early February is the best place for it, for that quality of player. So I think that's one of the factors. But it's certainly, the Maori team and the Indigenous team are 2 very important parts of our game and the culture of our game, and it should be celebrated. And the game was terrific the other night.
It was a good game.
Right from the opening ceremonies and everything as well. You could see what the time and effort that they'd put into it and how much it means to them, and the result meant something to them too. So it went down to the wire, and it was played at great intensity. Probably one of the better All-Star games that I've seen, to be honest. It was really good, and it all goes well for the season because you can see each individual player had prepared well. They've obviously come out of good systems. The training's been hard. They've had a good off-season, most of the sides, and that was reflected in a lot of the performances on the weekend in the trial games. Not that trials mean anything. There was only a couple of things I look for in trial matches, particularly with the younger fellas. But, the All-Stars, it's great concept. Schedule is the word I balk on.
I'm glad you mentioned the trials. Good segue, because my next question is, Bulldog Jack Todd is a star of the future.
Yes! Yeah. Why do you do that to the kid?
Oh, well, this would be no secret amongst Bulldogs fans. Crikey.
No, he's been in our system for a while. He's a boy from our Greater Northern project, our academy up at Greater Northern around the Tamworth area. He comes from up that way. He played in a premiership winning under-20s team a couple of years ago. Last year he was ready to debut. We'd actually picked a game out for him, and he broke his forearm in the reserve grade game. No, he broke his forearm at training. He banged it on someone and broke his forearm. And
not on their head.
Yeah, and a couple of other fellas got the jump in front of him. So Leapley Hopboy and Harry Hayes and those sort of fellas came in and played well. And then he had about a 6-week recovery and came back, and we had another game picked out in him, and he broke the other forearm.
Are you serious?
So he broke both forearms in 2 separate instances in the space of 30 minutes of football. So he had no luck. He probably could have come back and played in the finals at the back end of the year, but we said no. So we rested him. He's had a good off-season. He's still young. He's got a long way to go, and particularly as a front rower. But you saw yesterday, he's obviously got some class about him, and he's got some physical attributes that are going to take him a long way, and he played really well. Don't like putting big raps on kids, but it's exciting for the club. It's exciting for our academy programs, particularly, I suppose, everyone around in Tamworth today will be talking about Jack Todd and how he played on TV last night, and Jack had a big smile on his face. Hurt his ankle, actually, out of the game, so I have to get that fixed up. But, no, he's one of a number of young players there that we're very hopeful with that have sort of come over through the academy over the last couple of years, and we need to have that part of our operation going good for the future.
The other one I liked is Jethro on the wing. Ratu Rinakama.
Yeah.
Jethro. What a great old name.
Yeah. Great kid. Very, very smart kid too. He's doing engineering.
Really?
Yeah. His father was an engineer. So he's SG ball age.
Wow.
Yeah. He played SG ball last year as a first year. So SG ball is 18 and 19. So as an 18-year-old, he played SG ball last year. He then went and played in the Jersey Flegg final series in the grand final as an 18-year-old. He could play SG ball again this year. We've had some injuries in the outside backs. So Jacob Kiraz hasn't trained all summer and won't see the start of the season. And then last week, our new boy from Newcastle, who was training really well, Anari Tuala, fractured his foot at training, so he was unavailable. So we were just a little bit short in the outside backs. And yesterday Jonathan Sewer, who debuted one game last year, and Jethro Rinakima, they're players of the future. But, really like Jethro.
I love the name. It's a good old school footy name, that one.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a parent in weight, consider the name Jethro.
Yeah.
If you're a footy fan.
Yeah. I think we've
Remember Jethro Gus. That should be you could name your son Jethro Gus.
I think in our club we've nearly got every name possible.
Yeah, it's a broad church at Canterbury.
Yeah, we've
Cassius Tia. He went good.
Cassius, yeah, good player, Cassius. Yeah, so he was in the Roosters system. Came across to us last year. He was the halfback in the Jersey Flegg premiership winning team. He actually played for Roosters in the Jersey Flegg grand final the year before, the game that we won that year too. He came across and, he's had some challenges, but he's really worked hard on himself and on his body. And he showed yesterday that he's got some really good qualities about his game. Again, he's still young. they've got to give them time. But it's good, those trials, that they can get out there on that sort of stage and get a bit of a taste for it. You know, people can get a little bit carried away with trials. The two things I look for in trial matches right across the board, particularly that first weekend of trial where everyone puts all their younger fellas in those trials, is their physicality and their fitness. Because without the physicality and the fitness, they're not really going to provide you with first-grade depth this year. In time, they might, but it's the physicality, whether they enjoy the physicality and whether they've got the fitness levels to keep performing at that sort of speed. And I was really happy with a lot of our young players yesterday with the way they performed in that regard. They've still got a lot to learn football-wise and experience, and, you know, it's a totally different thing once all the good players are playing on it's a different brand of football, but yeah, physicality and fitness. I was very pleased with the way we presented ourselves. I thought there were some really good performances across the games on the weekend, and there were some others that probably disappointed a little bit. But
how do you think the Tigers went yesterday?
Tigers were good. Yeah, same thing. Physicality and fitness. A lot of their young fellas, they looked a lot fitter this year. Lachlan Galvin played the first half, which was he was pretty hard to handle, but you know, he showed his comeback really well. I think he'll learn a lot from playing with Jerome Luai. I think that's going to be a very formidable combination, and I think the West Tigers are going to have a very, very good year from what I saw.
Yes.
Yep.
Great optimism. Last one. Cody Ramsey's return to the footy field's already a candidate for Story of the Year.
Yeah, well, it's incredible. I actually met Cody Ramsey a few years ago. He's best mates with our neighbour. My neighbour's Mark Coyne, as you know, and his son James and Cody were good mates. And so I'd seen a fair bit of Cody and watched his football coming through the grades, and he got a very rare problem there that kept him out of the game for a long time, and it was worried whether or not he would even survive, let alone play football again. So it's been a long road back, but great courage and heart and determination just to persevere and get himself back on the field, which is all he wanted to do. So it was a wonderful moment for he and his family on the weekend to get back on the field. And he was always seen as a player of great talent. Remains to be seen whether he gets back to that level, but just getting back on the field has been an achievement in itself. It's
it's fantastic.
A great story.
Well done, Cody. And good luck for the rest of the year. Here's our hat.
What's the hat?
Away you go.
I got to pick a team out, do I?
Team 1. Practice for Vegas.
Team 1.
Who we got?
Newcastle Knights.
Oh.
The Newcastle Knights.
Wow.
So a couple of things before we start on the Newcastle Knights.
Do you want me to give you the players? Why don't we start?
This is my little bit of preparation. Go on.
I'll give you the players, and then you can take over.
What are you going to name every player?
No. Who's in and out?
I've got
Tyrone Thompson, Leo's brother, and James Schiller, who goes all right from Canberra, but they've lost Daniel Safita to the Dolphins. David Armstrong, we know, has gone to England. Anari Tuala went to Canterbury, and Christian Mapapalangi was released. So not a lot of turnover in players.
Yeah, David Armstrong went to Leeds. Jed Cartwright went to Hull. Thomas Jenkins. Thomas Jenkins has been released. Miles Martin went to Canberra. Their gains, they've got a kid called Tahajanan from the Queensland Reds. What's that, Rugby, is it?
Yeah.
Matt Arthur from Parramatta.
I've got where's all these come from? I've got half a list here.
What? I got mine off David Middleton.
Oh, there you go. I'll let you do all that.
Francis Manuelulu, and he's from Queensland Reds. He's a rugby fellow. James Schiller.
Yep.
Satani Takama, who's been at the Cronulla Sharks in the system there. Tyrone Thompson, Chief Super Rugby, who is obviously Leo's brother. Twin, isn't he?
Is he twins? Is he?
I think they're twins, yeah.
They've raided the rugby ranks, haven't they?
Looks very much like him. The Knights last year finished in 8th position. They made the finals last year, and one of the other factors that I'm going to look at with every squad is the number of first-grade games in the total number of their top 30 in 2024. So in 2024, Newcastle Knights, in their total roster, had about 1,886 first-grade games, NRL games in their side.
Mm-hmm.
This year, they now have over 2,000, which is a good number, 2019 NRL games. To give you an idea, the top side at Manly have got the most experienced roster. Manly and Dragons, 2,882 games, Manly NRL games in their roster, and St George Illawarra 2,614. They've recruited and bought some experienced players, but so Newcastle have actually improved the experience in their roster, the number of NRL games played.
Gus, I'm worried about Newcastle.
Why?
I just think they're so Ponga reliant, and they couldn't settle on halves last year. They don't seem to have a lot of depth at hooker. I know Jaden Brayley's, there's no uncertainty about him. Seems like there's a few balls up in the air with Newcastle.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned as you sound. I think they've got to get their halves sorted. They've got to find and settle on a combination. They did change their halves a hell of a lot during the course of the season last year, which appeared very reactionary. You know, the results were sort of getting in their head, and they would change the team regularly.
So Fletcher Sharp's been playing in the halves.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to second guess the coach. They're the ones training with them all the time. I don't know whether that was just for the trials, whether they're giving it a go, whether or not Fletcher Sharp. See, Fletcher Sharp's a fullback. He's been a fullback coming through the grades the whole time, and obviously he's not going to play fullback. Kalen Ponga is going to be the fullback while ever he's fit and well. Fletcher Sharp is an NRL fullback in the waiting. There has been examples of fullbacks moving to 5'8" and doing a good job, but usually later in their career. They tried it with Kalen last year, but it was a flop. I don't think they'll ever go back to doing that. Fletcher Sharp's filled in on the wing for them and done extremely well out there, which a lot of young fullbacks can do. It was difficult for him on the weekend, particularly defensively, to get up in the front line, which is not what he's used to. Whether or not they persevere there remains to be seen. Obviously with Tyson Gamble and Jackson Hastings and a couple of other young fellas that they got there, and I think their hooking stocks will be all right. I think.
Well, Crossan was playing halfback last year.
Yeah. Well, that was just part of that rotation that they started doing. I think that he's probably need to go back. Jaden Brayley, I think, will be right, won't he? He'll be ready to play this year.
I think so, yeah. But I believe, I mean, you know more than me, that he's no certainty to be there long term.
Bradman Best. Look, they'll win their share of games. They were in eighth position last year, and I think that would be a good result again for the Newcastle Knights this year. But they probably need to firm that up a little bit. They've still got Leo Thompson for another 12 months. I think their roster measures up as well as some, and they've got 2,000 games of NRL experience in them now. So I wouldn't be writing them off.
Okay. So you're saying mid-table, good result?
I think that's about where they are. It's going to be a battle for a lot of these teams. Like, if you look at the top two or three teams in the competition, there's not much between the rest. I mean, I still think Melbourne and Penrith stand out. The Broncos, well, the balls are in the air there. We don't really know what to expect, given what we saw on the weekend. They've obviously had a great summer, which will serve them well. They've got as much talent in the competition as anybody. So outside of them, you've got your Sharks, Roosters, Manleys, and those sort of sides. That will probably make the 8. The rest of it's pretty even. There's not much between the rest of them at all. It'll just come down to injuries and a bit of luck and bounce of the ball and winning those close games. I think all the teams are going to be, you're going to play in more than 50% of your games that go down to the wire, and you're going to have golden point games, and it's just all those games that get decided by 4 points or less. You've got to win your share. You've got to get good at doing that. And if you can come out on the positive side of that, then you'll have a better season. If you lose a handful of those, then that'll be the difference. But for most sides, if your team can win the close ones, it stands you in good stead.
I think what's noteworthy this year, though, teams that finished in the second part of the ladder, so missed the 8, a lot of them have really strengthened.
Yeah.
So you look at what the Dragons have done. You mentioned that already. Now, the Broncos, they have to improve. But they just have to.
Well, you would think so.
Warriors have got Fisher Harris, but they lost Fanua Blake. But they're a good team. Now, Parramatta.
We're doing Newcastle Knights, mate.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanted to, just an overall observation. Now, Souths could jump out of the ground under Bennett.
Well, Bennett's got the magic dust, and
And you've talked about the West Tigers improving, so that there is the underbelly of the comp looks like it will get a lot better.
I think this will be extremely competitive. I think, it always happens. The disappointing teams from last year have a great summer and get ready for this year, and the top sides, can they maintain it? We're diluting the top sides a little bit, through salary cap and just attrition, which is, the way the game works. But I still can't see how Melbourne and Panthers aren't the top 2 sides in the competition. And now Sharks, who've got great depth and great size, and they trialled well. Not that I'm worried about the trial, but other sides have all improved. Everyone's looking to improve. You have to improve. If you stand still, you're in trouble. It's hard to rely on last year's form to try and make any predictions for what what might happen this year. It's a new ball game.
I'm told all 17 clubs have trained the house down.
Well, yeah. Only half of them are undefeated at the moment. Okay. Gold Coast Titans.
Ooh.
Crikey. There'll be some sore heads up there this morning, won't there?
What about that?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know I don't know what you're reading to that, but man, they were miles off the pace.
Disappointing. Yeah, trials are trials, and that can improve very, very quickly. I mean, in the space of 7 days, they could put that behind them and do it. And they've got a talented roster. I keep looking at the Gold Coast Titans, and I'm perplexed sometimes at why they aren't doing better. Last year, they finished in 14th position.
Lost the first 4.
They got off to a slow start in the competition. You know, they were minus 168. They conceded 656 points, and that's the area where they've got to improve.
They've conceded 50 already.
Well, yeah, but 656 points. They're better than that. Yeah. They are honestly better than that, and they need to improve that part of their game and their mentality. And you'd expect the Des Hasler coach side to do that.
They get Tino back. That's the big one.
Last year, this is the other part. Last year they had over 2,000 games in NRL experience in their roster, so it's not a young roster. It's not an inexperienced roster. This year, they drop back a little bit. They actually lose a little bit of experience. They drop back to 2,000, but it's still a healthy number. It's not an inexperienced roster. They've got to settle on their playmakers. They've got to settle on their fullback half 5'8". They're holding on to the Kieran Foran experience part of that when, they've got Brimsons and Keeneys and Campbells and those sort of kids that are sort of bursting to get their time. They've got a strong forward pack. My God, they got a strong forward.
They do have a strong pack. The defensive stats you read out there. I admit they were knocked around pretty badly at times last year, but with that forward pack, they shouldn't be leaking that number of points.
I think it's a really handy roster. I really do. And if it performs to its potential, it's potentially a top 8 side. I've been saying that for a few years now.
I think we all have.
But it just hasn't come to fruition. So whatever it is up there that Des needs to fix, they need to work on it quickly. So that wasn't good on the weekend. No. That wasn't a good sign at all. Now, again, it's only a trial game. I don't read a lot into it. And the Broncos were buzzing. They were ready to but they need to perform better than that. And I'm sure they will this week. But the Titans have got a lot of improving to do if they want to challenge the teams that they're going to play finals football this year. They've got the talent. They just need the system. It's a thing we talk about, system beats talent. You need to have a system and you need to have a structure in your football and a mentality that stands up under pressure. And right at the moment, they've got the flash. They just don't have the fire.
So 2 big ins, if you will. I mentioned Tino will return, having missed all of last year.
Big loss.
And Regan Campbell-Gillard.
Yeah, who's got a little injury at the moment, but
does
so he's not playing in the trials. I don't know if he's ready for the start of the competition. I love Regan Campbell-Gillard as a player, and I think he'll be good for them. I think he'll be good for that forward pack, just to give them some leadership and direction as well. But the Gold Coast Titans, they lost Tanner Boyd, who went across to the Warriors. They lost Aaron Clark, who went across to the Warriors. Isaac Liu went over to Lee. Keenan Palacia's gone to Leeds, and Joe Stimson is unsigned. I believe he's going to go and play in England. But in the player market, it was really only Regan Campbell-Gillard as a major buy. Carter Gordon, who I think is a half, plays in the halves in rugby or something.
He was a fly half. He joined them mid last year.
And Chucky Simpkins from the North Devils, a feeder club up there. But I think they haven't been active in the player market, nor did they have to be. With all the players that they've signed, they've got some big money players there. I mean,
they were going to lose for Feeder, and then he changed his mind.
Yeah, Tino, and then Mo Fatawaker, and for Feeder, and
it's a hell of a pack.
Those sort of fellas. It's a good side.
Who would you play? What would your spine be? Bearing in mind, Keeney was their Player of the Year last year.
Yeah. Me personally,
yes.
Campbell would be halfback. Foran would be 5'8", and Brimson would be fullback. That's just me.
Okay.
Right, and Keeney can play off the bench and be exciting in that way. But, I think, I don't know what they've done with AJ Brimson. They've played him in the centres a little bit. They've played him at 5. It's kind of, they've moved him around to accommodate the others, where I think he's the strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I don't see them on a daily basis. The coach does, so you've got to trust his judgment on that. But looking at it, that would be playing against them. That would be the combination I'd least like to play against. Kieran Foran's, obviously his experience, and over the course of the 12 months, I don't know how long Kieran intends to keep playing, whether it'll be his last year. You'd be looking to get every ounce of experience out of him and knowledge and assistance to make sure that going forward, that was your spine, So, they got some really good, and they got another kid there, young Weaver's a halfback on the rise as well. He's a talented kid as well, and they got some other players there. They got speed. They got such speed out wide. It's a good side. Honestly, it's a good roster. They should do better. Hopefully, they will.
Mid-table, another one in the log jam, depending on what happens.
It's just one of them ones. They've got to improve their defensive record. You can't be conceding over 600 points in a season and think you're going to get anywhere near finals football. You're just not. That's really what they have to improve. I mean, they don't have any trouble scoring points when they're on a roll, but defending points just hasn't been their thing at the past. But we've been saying that for a couple of years, haven't we? South Sydney Rabbitoh. He's back.
He is back, isn't he?
He's back.
Isn't it amazing? And I find it a little puzzling, actually, that it needed Bennett to come back for the whole club to seemingly get itself sorted and get fit. They're all fit as a fiddle.
Well, we were predicted that. Naturally, Bennett's coming back. I've got to get fit. Well,
why weren't they fit last year?
That's the good question. That's the big question. This is another one last year. Their season fell away. They finished in second last position. Had a terrible start to the year. Did a little bit of a mid-season lift, but they only won 7 games. Conceded 682 points. So defensively, they've got to come to terms with that, and that's Bennett's strength. He won't allow that to happen again. South Sydney this year, they've got over 2,400 games in NRL experience. They're one of the top 4 or 5 sides in that regard. And last year they had 2,600, so they've actually gone backwards a little bit. They've actually been in the top 4 or 5 sides for NRL experience, so they can't blame that. They've got the coach now, and
they've turned over a stack of players as well.
Yeah, the issue will be, I guess, how the Englishman goes at halfback. So in the player market, it's been strange the way they've sort of recruited. It's Ewan Aiken from the Dolphins, who's sort of
He's a Bennett favourite.
He's a Bennett favourite. He played for him up there. Lewis Dodd is the interesting one from St Helens. So he's a high-priced purchase from the UK Super League as a halfback. Lachlan Hunter, Hubner from the Dolphins. I know Jamie Humphreys from Manly. Good little player, Jamie. He's bounced between 7 and 9 in the lower grades, and they saw some utility value there. John Schuster, Josh Schuster, sorry.
John's a bit past it.
Yeah, and Jaden Sullivan. So he's kind of gone out and bought in Jamie Humphreys and Schuster and Sullivan. He's bought some playmaker backup. Katie Walker's not getting any younger. Jack White and I guess it's a gamble. The UK fellow Lewis Dodd in the halfback role there.
So there's been a bit of mail around, but he's no guarantee to start at halfback.
Nah. Well, he's probably got to prove himself. When you look at what they've lost, like Thomas Burgess, Michael Cheekham, Damien Cook, Jacob Gagai, Dean Hawkins, Lachlan Ilias, Tane Milne, Isaac Thompson. So some experience there and some really good utility value there. They've got some younger players coming through that we probably haven't seen yet. They're performing a little better in the academy programs, but defensively, I think Bennett that's where he'll be making his big thing there. And defence comes from ball control and where you're giving the ball back to the opposition team. So it'll be a usual Bennett type transformation there in their method of football. He'll just have them playing very simply. Bennett teams are always hard to beat. They're always fit. They always play for 80 minutes. They're always hard to beat. Then you've got the X factors of Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell that can win you games when you need them most. But a fall from grace last year, that's got to be... and I guess why the move, why they sacked their coach and why they brought Wayne Bennett back is to kind of arrest that.
What's Mitchell going to produce under Bennett?
Well, by all reports, he's fitter than he's ever been. He's ready to go. But, Latrell's superior. Latrell's one of the superior scoreboard influences in the game. Like, he's a magnificent player when Latrell's on, when Latrell wants to play, when he's ready. So it's a good sign that he's got himself fit and well. Remains to be seen now what he produces for the rest of the season. So they need him desperately. They really do. They need him, and hopefully the halfback situation works out for them. But 16th position is not where we predicted them last year, and I wouldn't think they'll be that low again this year. Bennett's sides don't perform like that, so we can only see improvement for the Rabbitoh.
What would you be expecting to see from Josh Schuster? Do you
Yeah.
think he'll feature much in the NRL?
Well, I hope so. I hope for his own personal development, just for his own life that he does. Josh has had some challenges in life, and I don't know whether football's been an asset to him or a hindrance to him. And I guess he needs to work out whether or not football is a solution for him or not, whether it's actually a passion for him and he really wants to do it. And if you know Josh's past, that's not an easy question to answer. He plays football because he's talented, but whether or not he needs football is another question. That's a conversation you can only have with him. But there's no doubting his football talent, and if he's looking for a mentor in life, not just football, then Wayne Bennett is obviously someone who can help him. I hope he does. I hope he gets fit and well. I hope he enjoys his rugby league, and I hope he finds a passion for it, because I think it'll be important to his development as a man into the future. I wish him well with it. But, he's not there to save the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs are there to save him.
Bennett doesn't often miss the finals, Gus.
No, he doesn't. But, he's got plenty of experience in that side. It's not as though that's a young, inexperienced team that aren't ready for NRL, the battles of NRL. He's got plenty of experienced players there. I mean, Kalama, Tungi and these fellas are really good players. Cam Murray. Campbell Graham, what's happened there? He's had another hand injury, but they said he'll be back. He didn't play all last year.
Yeah, he was huge.
And he'll be back. I think they said he'll be back for round one. He's had a little hand injury during the off-season. They've certainly got the talent. And everything's about momentum. Everything's about getting off to a good start, finding some rhythm and momentum, keeping the same team every week so they've got familiarity, and then momentum and confidence builds. Bennett's a master at building confidence and building momentum and building team spirit and building defensive systems that work. And they need all of those things to happen for them, because that's where it all fell apart last year. And, every now and then a club goes through something like that, but you need to bounce out of that quickly, and that's why Bennett's there.
They'll be in the 8.
Rabbitoh in the 8?
Rabbitoh in the 8.
Really?
Yep.
It's been proving to do that. Canberra Raider. He's funny, Ricky. He doesn't like trials.
Doesn't he?
Hates trials. Hates trial games. Hates playing in trial games.
Right. Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
Hates playing in trial games.
So they picked up Sanders from Para, very talented young half.
Yeah.
The talk was he'd partner Fogarty and they'd move Strange to the centres, but I'm not sure that's the way it's been in the trials, which from all these probably not giving much away.
It's a long year.
Nicholson from England, another one.
Matty Nicholson, yep.
Tamale,
Yep.
Sevilier Tamale from St George Illawarra.
Yep.
Miles Martin from Newcastle, who I don't know much about. They've lost a heap. Whitehead, Kotrick gone. Ep01 went to Cronulla. James Schiller, Newcastle. Oh, Zach Wolford's gone.
Zach Wolford's gone. Elliot Whitehead's gone.
Yeah.
Nick Kotrick's gone. Emre Gula's gone.
Emre Gula, yeah.
Jordan Rapana's gone. James Schiller is gone. So on the score of players coming in and players coming out, they're probably on the negative side. Having said that, they've been pretty active in the academy programs for the last couple of years and had some good results.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't won competitions, but it's not about winning competitions in academy programs. It's about producing NRL players, and we saw a few of those on show in the trial recently.
He's had those good forwards there for a while, though, those young forwards coming
Yeah,
through.
I think, he's obviously gone the long-term route. They've had trouble recruiting marquee players, getting marquee players to go to Canberra, for whatever reason. So
I think it's a very pleasant place. I don't know why people don't want to go there, apart from the fact it's bloody cold.
Well, it's bloody cold and it's bloody hot, Canberra. It's hottest in summer and it's coldest in winter.
And you can set off fireworks.
Yeah, but like Ricky's done the right thing. Like the club's done the right thing. They've invested in youth, and they've got through into their academy programs, and they're developing some really good young players coming through. So they've taken the long-term approach to that, which I think every club needs to do. And Raiders on their day have got the ability to score points. Last year, the Raiders finished 9th. They just missed out on the top 8. Again, conceded 600 points, which is not where you want to be. You want to keep it under that sort of 500 mark if you want to be playing in finals football. But over 600 points they conceded. They won 12 games. They were only beaten on for and against for the 8 by the Newcastle Knights. So they were very, very close. And I think that's probably similar, again, where they rank this year, along with that middle sort of dozen sides. And it'll just be the up and downs of the narrow wins and the narrow losses and improving your defence. But I can see that happening. Let's have a look at their NRL experience. The Raiders last year, they had 2,000, so that was okay. And this year, the Raiders, where are the Raiders? They're down the bottom. So they're actually the least experienced roster in the league. It's 1,700. 1,700 is not a bad number. Last year, the bottom teams were West Tigers and Canterbury at sort of 1,500 and 1,600. So to have 1,700, they're actually more experienced than the bottom sides were last year. But they've gone backwards a fair way in NRL experience in their side. So they're the least experienced side in their roster for NRL experience this year. So it just shows that the youth policy is coming through. Last year they were at 2,000. Just got pipped for the top 8. This year it's a younger side, less experienced side. It'll be about keeping their main players on the field and winning the close games, improving their defence, which, I'm sure Ricky's well aware of that. Don't be worried about what you saw in the trial games. Although the first trial...
Well, they beat Penrith.
Yeah, the first trial wasn't too bad.
And the second one, I know the scoreboard was 40-10, but actually he took most of his main players off after 20 minutes. What I mean. They scored 2 tries in the first 10 minutes, and then he took them all off.
He didn't want them out there. He said it before the game. He said, I hate trials. He's hated trials. He would prefer to go into the season with no trials. He thinks you can do it at training, right? No trials. He didn't want any of his good players playing in the trials. And I'd imagine that attitude gets into their head even if they have to go out and play in the trial. They did lead 10-0 the other day. It fell away a little bit for them, but I don't think he worried about that. I think... he'll be getting himself ready for... they're going to Vegas, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah. Who do they play? Warrior.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be a good battle.
The best Canberra teams are the ones that are just almost impossible to beat down there in Canberra, aren't they?
It's a hard road trip.
Yeah.
It's a hard road trip.
Like if he can bank 80% of his home wins.
Yeah, and one of the things with Canberra is that when they play away from home, they're obviously in camp a lot because they travel, the day, because they've got a lot of travel to do during the course of the year. Oh. They're very good at home because you've got to travel to go to play with them down in those conditions. But everywhere else, they've got to go and spend in camp. So they spend a lot of time in camp together. So the camaraderie and the friendship and the mateship and the connectivity of their team, Ricky likes building that through the course of the season. And it's about momentum and confidence. They looked like making the 8 last year, then they didn't, and then they were still there at the back end. And it was only for and against that let them down. It was a couple of really bad defensive results that probably hurt them in the end on the for and against, and they finished level with the Newcastle Knights and didn't make the 8. They're in the mix. There's no doubt they're in the mix like a lot of other sides. It'll just come down to winning the close games, winning away from home, nailing their their games, keeping their best players on the field, sorting out the halves situation. They've got strike power. They're tenacious. They'll be fit, and keeping their key forwards together.
It'd be strange seeing a Raiders team without Jordan Rapiner.
Yeah, and Elliot Whitehead's been so good for them too. That's a lot of experience out of the team. That's why probably they've dropped back down. So, but for the Raiders, they are the least experienced in their roster at the moment, the least experienced in NRL games played of any team in the NRL.
All right, that's the Raiders. What hat is this? Oh, don't know.
Put Canberra Raiders back in there. I drew them out again. That's an omen.
Oh, he's pulled them out twice. Maybe there's 2 Raiders tickets in there. Maybe Jordan's been sneaky.
All right. New Zealand Warrior.
New Zealand Warrior.
New Zealand Warrior. Now, what happened to them last year?
Well, I can tell you what happened in 2023. Yeah. They finished in the 4, and then they missed the finals last year.
Yeah.
People like me saying they could win the comp last year.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah, and look, there wasn't a great deal of difference between their for and against. There was only minus 62, which, you want to be in the positive. 574 points conceded is getting up too many. You don't want to be conceding that many. They had some injury situations during the year. They too, just looking at the
Sean Johnson retired.
the players in and out, the Warriors, their gains, Tanner Boyd, a half. Aaron Clark, who I think is a good player. Jet Cleary has come across from the Panthers. James Fisher-Harris is a big in. Gee whiz, that's a great coup for the club. And Sam Healy, who's a really good young player. I really like Sam.
Where's Sam from?
He's been in the Cronulla Sharks system.
Okay.
I think he's Mitch Healy's son.
Oh, right.
Plays hooker. Yeah, played well in the trial, the first trial that I saw there too. The losses, Aden Fanua-Blake, Tohu Harris,
No.
Sean Johnson. Now that's massive.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, if you go back to 23 when they made the top four
You said Tohu Harris was the best player in the comp.
in the competition at the time, Aden Fanua-Blake, Tohu Harris, Sean Johnson, and then they've got a couple of experienced players in Marcelo Montoya, who's gone to the Bulldogs, and Jazz Tavanga, who's gone to Manly, and recently Zion Mayu.
Oh, what
went
about
across
him?
to the Bulldogs? But Aden Fanua-Blake, Tohu Harris, Sean Johnson.
Makes it hard.
That's a huge change. Not so much. It's a loss, obviously, but it's a huge change in the makeup of your team to lose such three important senior players like that, such influential players, and that's going to take some getting over, I think. Where's me sheet there?
Oh, yes, here's your game
You stole that. You like that one, don't you? So the Warriors in 24 had the third most number of NRL games in their roster. Obviously, your Fanua-Blakes, your Tohu Harrises, and those sort of fellows at 2,600. Like, that's a really experienced roster, 2,600 games of NRL games. They're still at 24, even though they've lost that experience. So, it's not as though they're going to lose on the score of inexperience. It's just going to be Tohu Harris and Sean Johnson ran the game for them.
Yeah.
Fanua-Blake was the key element in their go forward. Now, counter that, James Fisher-Harris comes in, right? 4-time premiership winner, New Zealand national captain. He's played in 5 grand finals, All-Stars, led the All-Stars on the weekend. So that's a cultural shift I can see for them in James Fisher-Harris coming in. And James Fisher-Harris doesn't like to fail at anything. Like, he will go there thinking that he can be the difference in culture and attitude to get them back to where they need to be. So the Warriors one I'm watching with real interest to see how they accommodate that loss. Young Metcalf and Tamare Martin played in the halves there the other day. Tanner Boyd, I actually sat with the Warriors owner and CEO the other night to watch the trial game against Cronulla out at Shark Park. I was with Cameron George and Mark Robinson, and we're just sort of talking about all the players going through. They've been really impressed with Tanner Boyd since he come across from the Gold Coast. And I like Tanner Boyd. I think he's a little bit under the radar. Good goal kicker too, and
he plays 9 and 7.
Yeah, he can play either. Maybe a number 14, or it depends what they do with Tamare Martin.
I like Metcalf.
Metcalf's a good player, very quick.
He's been working with Joey a bit.
Yeah, they've got a shortage in the outside backs at the moment. I understand that they've had a couple of injuries. A couple of their good young players are missing at the moment. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak fractured a wrist the other night in a trial game, and he's going to be missing the start of the season. And I believe Rocco Berry, the exciting young centre, has had an issue too and may miss the start of the season as well. So they're a little bit short in outside backs.
Okay.
They've actually been ringing around looking at clubs to see whether or not they can pick up an outside backs just for depth.
Oh, okay.
They lost Marcelo Montoya to the Bulldogs. So the Warriors, and they're going to Vegas. They're going to
Might
Vegas.
lose a few more backs as well.
The Raiders are going to Vegas. The Warriors are going to Vegas. It's these are things that they're going to have to contend with too. Love the Warriors. Love what they're about. What I'm really pleased with is the Warriors Academy programs are doing really well. They've been real established. They're back in the New South Wales Rugby League competitions. That'll serve them well in the future. They got, the Warriors are always hard to beat across there, but that's a lot of experience out of their side. And James Fisher-Harris has got a big job to fill that void that those three players left. He's quite capable, though.
All right, that's 4, 5. Let's take our little break here on Six Tackles with Gus, episode 1, 2025. But on the way to the break, our trivia question, which if Gus was listening to me on Saturday night, he'll know the answer for, which means he probably won't because he never listens to me. Which player has the most All-Stars appearances? There was a record breaker on Saturday night. Most All-Stars appearances.
I should know this, shouldn't I?
Yeah. I said it about 8 times.
I don't.
Jack Whiten.
Oh, Jack Whiten.
For
Has
the
he?
8th time.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few on 7, and Josh Kerr.
Where's Jack Whiten going to play for the Rabbitohs? What position is he going to play?
He'd be left centre, wouldn't he?
Is he?
You want him in the back row.
Well, I think he could play in the back row. I think he could play 5'8". Cody Walker could play halfback.
I just spent $1 million on a bloke from England.
Yeah,
It's expensive to run around in reserve grade.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Wayne does there. Very interesting indeed. I mean, I'm cheering for Lewis Dodd. I hope he does well. I hope he does well for the UK Super League.
What did you make of him as a player? You just seen a lot of him in Super League.
Yeah, very quick, bit of a ball runner.
Okay.
He's not overly big.
So he's not an organising type as such.
I wouldn't say that he's a game manager, no. He's kind of an individual, instinctive sort of player.
Okay.
Hasn't got a bad kicking game. He's not overly big, but he is very, very quick. I think he did an Achilles a couple of years ago. He had nearly 12 months off, or
Right.
9 months off with an injury there, and he sort of took a little while to get back into it. But
So did he scream NRL to you when you watched him?
when he was young, he was always touted as one of those. But we worry about the UK Super League and bringing halves out. Like the forwards have always done really well. It's the backs that probably struggle when they get out here. Forwards, there's some been really good English forwards come out and do really well in the NRL. Other than the young boy that was at Canberra, what was
George Williams.
George Williams. There haven't been too many halves out here in recent times that have come out and succeeded. He was seen as one of the hopefuls that could come, and he's always had a passion for coming to the NRL. He's always wanted to go to the NRL. So he's been on everyone's shopping list for a long time. Like they've been offering him up for a long time. And finally, South Sydney bit the bullet and went and did it. I guess with the injuries to Ilias and the fact that Ilias was probably going and wondering where, Cody Walker, how much football he's got left in him. They'd lost Adam Reynolds. It's an educated gamble. I hope he does well. I hope he does well to promote UK Super League here in the NRL. It would be good if a young half could come from over there and do well here. And we've got to give him time. He's got the right coach, so I'm hoping he does well. I've already got it. Cronulla Sharks.
Sharkies.
Yes.
Well, one of my questions in our yes-no earlier, which I held off to ask you now, is there's been a feeling with Cronulla that there's just that little bit of X factor that they're missing. Have they found it now in Adam Fanua-Blake?
Well, last year, they've been top 4 now for a couple of years, so they've been knocking around there. The teams that ran 3rd and 4th last year, the Roosters and the Sharks, were better than everybody else, other than the 2 top teams, Storm and Panthers. Now, Storm and Panthers played them in the finals and flogged both of them. So the difference between the top 2 and the next 2 was massive, and the difference between the next 2 and the rest was probably just as big. So they're in the top 4 mix at the moment. Conceded only 431 points. That's where you want to be if you're going to play finals football. You want to be in that low 400s, certainly under 500 points conceding. That's just how it works out at different times. Obviously, the big purchase for them has been Adam Fanua-Blake and the young half from Canberra, Peru. They've lost Royce Hunt, Tokamo and Jack Williams. So there hasn't been a great deal of change. So there's a lot of familiarity in their roster. They've spent some time together. Craig Fitzgibbon's been there for a couple of years now. The culture is well ingrained. They were very impressive in the trial on the weekend. They're going to Vegas, so get a good look at them, in a couple of weeks' time when they're in Vegas, and then they've got to recover that, come back. But the Cronulla Sharks are easily a top 4 roster in this competition. Let's have a look at their NRL experience, which I imagine will rate pretty well.
Heaps, yeah.
Cronulla, last year it was only 1,800. This year it's over 2,000. So they've picked up a couple of 100 games in NRL experience. That's where the fellas coming through. Good wingers, good centres, good halves. Nico Hines and Braden Trindle, I think, are settling into quite the combination. Young Will Kennedy, Brayley at hooker. It's a very workman-like spine, good forward pack, good strike power out wide. Their wingers are outstanding.
But if you're a Sharks fan, you listening to this, you're thinking, how are they going to take the next step?
Well, for them, it's about, they've got to re-establish themselves, obviously, and get back into the competition and be winning games week in, week out, which they don't seem to have a problem doing. And then last year, they had a couple of wins over the top sides in the middle of the season, but when it got finals time, they just couldn't match it with them. I think that's the next step. They can't just hop on one leg and make it to September, but it's about how they go next September. I think they'll be in the 8. I think they'll be in the 4. And whether or not they can make up the ground on Melbourne and Penrith to give us a different looking grand final, I think, they're a premiership chance. They're a genuine premiership chance. They've been knocking on the door now for a couple of years. They got the experience out of that. Whether it's good experience or bad experience remains to be seen, but there's certainly some learnings there. I think Fanua Blake can be phenomenal for them, particularly with the forwards that they've got. It's just that little bit of leadership that they're probably looking for, and that he's such a good player
and skill.
Yeah, but he's such a good player, and off the back of them, Nico Hines and Braden Trindle and Kennedy should be able to create a lot of opportunities. They're a premiership chance. There's no risk in the world. They're a premiership chance, and they'll be bouncing around the top 4 for most of the year.
Leave out all the stuff that the Nico talk that seems to be bouncing around him perennially. In the end, how much of this sits on his shoulders as the main playmaker in the club? Notwithstanding that, I think Braden Trindle showed last year that he's every bit as good.
Yeah, well, towards the back end there, I felt like Braden Trindle was actually playing half and Nico was playing a secondary role. There's a theory that Nico's probably a better fullback than a halfback. It's just his talent that puts him in the number 7 jersey. I think Nico's got really good ignoring the noise from the outside. I mean, he seems like, it might have worried him early on, but I don't know. I think he seems very settled in himself at the moment. He's creative. They're going to beat a lot of the sides pretty comfortably in games. Like, that's the thing. It's just how they match up against the good sides on the big days is what they've got to do. They've got to be able to beat. It's the key to winning a premiership. It's that last little 2 or 3%. You talk about on your best day. And my thing is, can we beat them on their best day? Can we beat Melbourne on their best day? Can we beat Penrith on their best day? That's the next step.
Sharks went down and beat Melbourne in Melbourne with half their team missing last
So
year.
everyone's relying on, Sharks on their day, Sharks on their best day. I look at it differently. All right, we need to get ourselves steeled so that we can beat them on their best day.
Yeah.
If we get to the games and Penrith produce their best, or Melbourne can produce their best, or Roosters, or Manly, whoever it is, when we play our side and they produce their best, can we win? That's what Penrith and Melbourne have become great at, and that's what Penrith's been outstanding at. They beat everyone when everyone's at their best. Everyone's lifting to try and beat the Panthers. They still bat them away and beat them. On their best day, all these teams can probably make the 8 on their best day. On their best day, they can probably beat any team, right? But can they beat the top sides when the top sides are on their good day? Well, for a lot of them, the answer is no. And for the Sharks, that's the step they need to take. It's not just having their best day. They've got to deal with the opposition's best day, because that's what you get in the finals. You get there and you come up against a Penrith and a Melbourne. They're going to have their good day. You need to be able to beat them then. During the season, you might catch them off guard. You might catch them off week. They might have only had a 5-day turnaround. Might be field might be wet, or players playing with injuries. You've got to beat them on their best day. That's the battle of winning premierships. It's the battle of origin. It's not about your best day. It's about beating them on their best day.
I'm going to manipulate the system.
Right.
Because you've already said Penrith and Melbourne are the teams to beat again. You've just said the Sharks will make the 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about the Roosters, who were in 4th place last year.
What are you rigging the draw?
I'm rigging the draw. Because the Roosters...
That's not uncommon in rugby league.
Particularly for the Roosters? They're pushing it uphill, the Roosters.
What do you want me to do? Pick the Roosters?
No, I'm going to throw the Roosters at you.
Oh, you want to do the Roosters now?
Wow. They are they are a very fascinating case study here, aren't they?
No
Joey Manu, no Sam Walker, no Brandon Smith for the first 2/3 of the year, the last two.
They've been one of our top sides for a long, long time. No risk about that. Where are they here? Sydney Roosters. So, Gaines, they've bought one player, Chad Townsend.
Yeah.
Right, Chad Townsend.
Who they probably bought as backup, didn't they? And now he's been thrust into being their main playmaker.
With the injury to Sam Walker and the loss of Luke Keary. But look at the losses here. Michael Jennings, Luke Keary, Joseph Manu, Terrell May, Dylan Napa, Joseph Suali'i, Satili Tupanua, Jared Warrior-Hargreaves.
Man.
Wow. I mean, to have a drain on your roster like that, let's go back and have a look at what that's meant in real terms. So, Roosters, they had 2,353 games of NRL experience last year. Sydney Roosters, they've dropped down to just over 2,000. So they've lost over 300 games in NRL experience in their roster compared to the ones that are coming in.
I'm not sure I've ever seen the Roosters lose that many quality players at once.
No. And
with the injuries on top.
Yeah, well. and the recruitment's been interesting because they got in the market for a few players and missed them, which is unlike them as well. They had David Fafita backflip on them, which is, we just don't see that at the Roosters. The Roosters do invest heavily in their pathways programs. They've got some outstanding young kids coming through, right? Outstanding. And I just think, so far as the Roosters, where they are as a club at the moment, they need to transition that. They need to just take a breath and take a step back and transition it and make sure that a number of these young fellas coming through the system actually get into NRL, get plenty of experience and come on before they then go out trying to buy the marquee player that might be able to solve them. Now, obviously, when Sam Walker gets back, that's going to be helpful to them. I don't know. He should be right by May or June, I suppose.
I think it's certainly second. Was it second half of the year? Like it was late in the season when he hurt himself.
Yeah. They say 9 months now. They're a bit conservative on those ACLs, and I think it's his second one. So, the Roosters are a very professional organisation. What they've got to do is just take a breath and put some time and energy into those young players that are coming through, and teach them what the NRL is all about, and trust them to develop over the next couple of years. They're all about winning comps, and they don't like going backwards. But sometimes you've got to take a step back to go forward.
Are you alluding to the R word?
What's that?
Rebuild.
Well, there's no doubt they're in a rebuild.
Never seen the Roosters in a rebuild?
I can remember.
Well, when you, not since you were there.
Like 30 years ago, she was a rebuild. And I still think they've got a lot of classy players. It's just a matter of lowering the expectations and raising the appreciation for the kids that they've got. I think they're going to be treated like the Roosters by every other side in the competition. Last night against the Dragons, they were found a little bit wanting in defence. I thought they were a little bit unlucky on a couple of occasions. But I've got a lot of faith in some of the young fellas they got coming through. I think they've just got to trust them a little bit more and let them build into their careers and take the ride with them a little bit. They've had a wonderful, wonderful 20 years, 25 years of peak performances, and they've been one of our marquee teams in the competition, and they're always strength. But right at the moment, I don't see them falling off the face of a cliff. I don't see them falling out of top 8 contention at all. But you can't lose that number of experienced and great players without it having some effect. So what they need to do is just shift their focus a little bit and get into transitioning these young fellas and teaching them what the NRL is all about, and being patient with them and helping them through the next 18 months or so. And I think there's some rewards there for them. I would hate to think that they start losing some of those younger fellas who get frustrated because they keep bringing older blokes in on top of them. They went out in the market for Dane Gagai. There were some strange things that sort of went on there about who they were looking for to recruit and to move. And in recent years who they've bought. When the Terrell May thing
That's odd.
was strange. I can't get to the bottom of that because I thought towards the end of the year he was one of their better forwards.
He was being whispered about as an Origin contender.
Well, he could well play Origin this year.
Yeah.
Terrell, I think he's a great buy for the West Tigers. And his best football's clearly in front of him. I just didn't understand that.
Doesn't fit the Rooster culture.
Well, that's the story. I don't know if that's... I don't know. Yeah, maybe not.
So you reckon they can still make the 8?
I think they'll be bouncing around there, yeah. But because they've got talent. There's plenty of talent there. But that's a huge drain. I'll be very surprised if Joey Manu doesn't come back at some stage of the
Well, that's
season.
the talk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they've certainly got room for it.
Yeah, and when Sam Walker, if they can hold their end up early and Sam Walker gets back, and I think the future looks bright. I think this is just going to be one of those years where they just need to be really patient and very appreciative for everything that they get, and I think they'll win their share of games, and I can't see them falling off the face of the earth. They're too professional for that, but it's not going to be the Rooster team that we've seen in the last number of years.
That is the first half of our season preview for season 2025.
How many have we done? 8.
7 or 8. Do you want me to count how many left? Not that many.
Yeah. We've got an odd number,
Yeah, we do. Well, we won't preview the bye. We won't need to do that.
No.
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
By the time our second part of our preview is released for public consumption, you'll be somewhere over the ocean.
I'll be in Vegas.
Oh, you'll be in Vegas?
I'll be in Vegas, baby.
All right.
Yeah, I'll be getting around to watch all the teams train, see their venues, see the gyms that they're using, look at where they eat, how they prepare. The biggest thing for me, I don't know. I'm just going to watch how they all approach it. But I think recovery is going to be a big thing. From what I understand, everyone played their game, packed up, and jumped on a plane and came straight home. And I'm not
knowing that there's a week off.
Yeah, I'm not a sports scientist, and I'm not in. But I just wonder whether or not you don't need a couple of days to decompress after the game and recover and then get yourself right and then maybe train again over there and then come home. That's just a theory. I'll see how it goes. We've had teams that in World Club Challenges have gone across to England early in the season and come back and been a bit slow to start the competition. And so I'm very big on both sides of it, not just the preparation into the game. I think the preparation into the game's easy enough. I think it's how you recover coming out of it. That's the thing. And
where are the teams based this time around? Do you have your idea?
So I think they all 3 of them are in Vegas. I think the Sharks went to LA. They were booked in for somewhere in LA, which became unavailable because of the fires or something else.
Oh, right.
But they did stay in. I was actually talking to Dino Mezzatesta this morning. Going to meet up with him in Vegas on the 25th. They did use a thing. I've been recommended training camps in New Orleans and San Francisco and San Diego and all sorts of other areas, but it would mean then, a 3 or 4 hour flight into Vegas to get ready for game day, which we do here. We go to New Zealand, we go to Townsville and those sort of places. But get over there and look at the facilities, see how they're going to train, see how much time you're going to spend actually in America acclimatizing. I'd imagine you've got to get there early just for the time difference and the lag and everything else as well. Get rid of the conditions. I mean, in Vegas at the moment, it's like 12 degrees in the day and 2 degrees at night. It's pretty cold over there at the moment. I've got to pack 2 suitcases. I'm going to Hawaii where it's nice and sunny and warm, and then I've got to have a suitcase for Vegas.
Don't get them mixed up.
Where I've got to get them all rugged up, so I'm going to have to carry 2 bags.
All right, thank you, Gus. Part 1 of our preview done and dusted. Tune in next week for part 2 and a bit of other stuff thrown in as well. We look forward to your company then.